if you want to create any successful business, it starts with your culture. And then there's a famous quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay, you can have a great strategy. If the culture in your business is toxic, your strategy will go out the window because you won't have people that believe in it. You won't have people that act on it. And so getting the culture right is really important.
Hello and welcome all to our Superlawyer YouTube channel today. I'm here with my dear friend Scott Simmons from UK. He is the one person who talks about turning lawyers into rainmakers. He has been a business development coach as well as a BD consultant. He has extensive legal background. Today, he'll be talking about how we can make ourselves more business friendly, better in business development. So most welcome, Scott, and it's a great day today that we can now discuss about all these aspects related to the practicing law. So I'll start it with the first question. As someone with your kind of background in practicing law, what actually motivated you to shift your focus from practice to coaching and then to training lawyers for business development?
So firstly, hello, Divya, and thank you for having me on the show. I'm so pleased to be here, and you know that I love chatting and sharing time with you. So to give you sort of a bit of background about how I got to where I am. So I'm an ex-lawyer. I used to practice law, as you said. And when I started out in my career, I was fortunate enough to work with a head of department and a mentor who really encouraged me to get to know clients, to understand where they were coming from, what their motivations were, and most importantly, to remember that behind every matter is a human being. And that shouldn't be forgotten. And that stuck with me. I was also acutely aware of the fact that when I started at a smaller high street firm, we were working on huge numbers of matters at a time. And when you're working on those such a huge number of matters, customer service dips. It's inevitable. You're a human being. There's only so much capacity that you have. And when you're taking on a big amount of work, along with your own well-being, your health and well-being, you know, the customer service suffers as well. And I realized that there was a better way to do things, that we could charge more, provide better service, give more time to clients, and that would then enable us to make more money and everything would improve. And what was happening was that where we started, my boss, my mentor, he was ill on an ongoing basis. And what we found was that by changing how we worked, by moving away from higher volumes, lower fees to higher fees and lower volumes, everything improved. Customer service improved, our relationships improved, our reputation spread so far. But most important to me was that my boss really, he wasn't ill anymore. He wasn't having to take time off work. And that meant more to me than anything else. I went through my career and I went from residential conveyancing, residential real estate, through to commercial property, into trust and company management. And finally, I ended up in corporate. And as time went on, I was finding myself under increasing pressure. The billable hour continued to work more and more against me. I was spending less and less time at home, more and more time in the office. And it reached a point where I suffered quite bad burnout. I just became ill. And I built up a very good reputation for myself. And when I decided to stop practicing law, I'd really fallen out of love with it at that point. And I was given just lots and lots of offers to do pure business development. And the thing was that what I realized throughout my career was that that was the thing that I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed getting to know people. I enjoyed finding out about their story, what led them to where they were, understanding what was motivating them to make the next transaction, the next deal, the next decision, and finding ways to help. That was what was key for me. You know, we sometimes forget that most people who go into law go in because they want to help people. And I was really driven by ways that not just legally, but commercially, I could help people. Strategically, how could I help people? And that stuck with me. And so when I got the opportunity to just focus on BD, I jumped at that opportunity. And I found that if I worked not just with lawyers, but across different professional services industries, I was learning different elements of business development. I was learning different aspects of customer service. I was learning pricing more. And what I then discovered was that if legal businesses particularly wanted to improve the way that they did their business development, in order to do it at scale, you were going to have to get lawyers involved. What lawyers sell, amongst other things, by the way, this isn't all, but we are in the knowledge service industry. That's what we sell. We sell knowledge. So any lawyer who says, I'm a lawyer, I don't sell, it's just not true. You're selling every single day. The advice that you give, the information that you share, the insights, they're all ways of selling without ever having to sell. And in order to do it really effectively, lawyers have got to get involved. And it can be fun. And we'll talk about that a bit later on. But in order for lawyers to get involved, they had to learn the skills. And unfortunately, when we go through law school, when we go through our training contracts, even early years of practice, no one teaches us business development skills. And so it creates a real problem when the time comes and we sit down and we say, oh, we're going to make you partner, but now you've got to go out and win work. That creates a real mindset problem, which is, I've never had to do that before. It's never been within my remit. I've never thought that as a lawyer, I had to do that. Now, what do I do? And so I have always made it a mission of mine, whichever business I've worked with, getting lawyers to understand business development principles, getting them to appreciate how important a part of their job it is and why it can be so much fun has really what's driven me throughout my entire career, but particularly since I went down this road of focusing in on teaching lawyers.
Actually, you are right that we are selling something every day. We are expanding our knowledge. Not only that, we are selling it as well. So that being said, it is traditionally understood that legal profession is actually not oriented towards teaching business development, as you were saying. How is it that you identify all these needs and started developing training modules and things, especially with your trademarked BD breakthrough blueprint, and how specifically it helps lawyers in their business development journey? How have you developed that and how are you helping them?
I love that question. It started because when we started up Legal Balance, in order to just work on the pure business development, I realized that all of a sudden, this was now going to be my day job. I was going to be winning work for clients and I was going to have to do it every single day. And I realized that I was going to have to sit down and think about what I was doing in order to make sure that I was doing it day after day after day. And I really went through a relearning process and almost an unlearning process as well. I was going to have to find a way to make it consistent. In order to make it consistent, I was going to have to build a habit. I was going to have to create a habit of doing these things every single day. And in order to create the habit, I was going to have to find a system that I could easily follow over and over and over again. And so that's what I started doing. I really honed in on what was the process that I was going through and what was I going to have to do and repeat over and over again if I was to do this consistently. Because what you will find with business development is when lawyers talk about their workloads, they talk about peaks and troughs, and I see it all the time. They say, oh, peaks and troughs are natural in the law and they come and they go. And I always say, no, that's not true. The reason that there are peaks and troughs is because you can track the business development work that you do. And when you do a lot of business development work, there will be a period of time when that business development work pays off in terms of business won. Okay. So then when you're doing lots of business development, it might be weeks, it might be months, it might be whatever it is, you will see that when you've done a lot of business development, at some point, there'll be a lot of work that comes in. When that work comes in, we then stop doing business development. And so then the work drops off. And then when the work drops off, what do? We then say to ourselves, oh, well, we'll just do more business development work. And it comes. And what eventually happens is, firstly, it takes a toll. It really does take a toll on your health because you worry about the work not being there. But more than that, if the timing's not right, your dip in work comes at a time when it might be difficult for the business you're working with. It could be during a time of a global recession. And if there's no work, if there's seemingly no work there for you, your job is in trouble. And what I always say to people is if you do business development consistently, there is no such thing as a peak and a trough. There is consistent business development leads to consistent work. So bringing that back, what I realized was that there was a system that I was following. And if I was following that system all the time, the work, the opportunities would present, not present themselves. I would find those opportunities and a percentage of those would lead to work. And I only needed a percentage of those to turn into work to be incredibly busy. But if I did it consistently, I'd be consistently busy. And when I talk about busy, I mean busy in terms of I'd be making money. I'd be making a lot of money. I'd be making a lot of profit for clients and for myself. Right. Okay. So then what happened was got to get the lawyers involved. Got to get the lawyers involved because that's how we scale. I can't do this on my own. We've got to get the lawyers involved. So I insisted that when I worked with any law firm, that I work with the lawyers. And I would work with the lawyers to train and coach them in how to sell. And it started with teaching them the system. And I developed a system called Precision. And Precision is a 9-step process. And it's simple to follow. And if you're going to go down the road of teaching people anything, you start simple. No one starts a child on quadratic equations before you've got them the basics of mathematics. And you take them steps at a time into maths. And eventually, miles down the road, we get to quadratic equations, okay? No one just goes, there's a 4-year-old, we're going to start them on maths. And what we'll do is we'll start them on quadratics. You wouldn't do that to a child. And we wouldn't do that anywhere in our lives. So we start very, very simple. And we start with precision and we keep it very simple. And because simple gets good results, because those first few steps will get you higher returns than really anything else you'll learn further down the road, because you'll be so far into that journey. And that was the start of what eventually became the BD Breakthrough Blueprint, which then takes you into other things, such as how to give great presentations, how to network confidently and with purpose, why your CRM system is so vital. And then it's all underpinned with mindset. Why how you think about business development determines your success with it.
I keep on learning every time you talk about this, and that too this passionately. So would you care to elaborate on the key areas of the focus while you are developing these coaching programs, such as mindset, confidence, leadership, and networking? And how are these elements important in the contribution to the lawyer's success while you are talking about business development?
Okay, so I mentioned before about mindset, and what's very interesting about most sales training is that they go into, and hey, I'm not going to sit here and tell you, Divya, that I'm the world's greatest sales trainer. I don't believe I am. I think there are people out there far better than I. But I work with lawyers and I understand how lawyers think because I was a lawyer and I understand where they've come from. What I always understand is that when you come from a place where you're told over and over again that your job is to do the work that's put in front of you, when you get through your career and all of a sudden somebody says to you, no, actually a big part of your job now is going out there and winning the work, it hits you like a ton of bricks. That feeling that you've now got to add a different dimension to your career that no one ever told you you were going to have to, it can really shake your understanding of who you are as a lawyer. So that's why when I teach any lawyer how to sell, how to do business development, the first thing we start with is understanding your mindset. It's understanding how your beliefs determine your thoughts, and your thoughts determine your actions, and your actions determine your results, and then your results determine, your beliefs and into thoughts again. And it's a circle that just keeps going round and round. And when you understand how your mind works, and when you understand that really the only thing stopping you from learning anything in life is what you tell yourself you are capable of learning, when you uncover that, you realize that actually everything else from there is relatively simple. And the thing I always say is that business development isn't hard. Business development is easy. It's overcoming that mindset that tells you can't do it. When you can do that, everything else is just one step at a time, learning. So we start with mindset. Now, things like culture and habits, The reason I teach those two things, and again, they're part of precision selling, they're part of the BD Breakthrough Blueprint. The reason I teach those is because if you want to create any successful business, it starts with your culture. And then there's a famous quote, culture eats strategy for breakfast. Okay, you can have a great strategy. If the culture in your business is toxic, your strategy will go out the window because you won't have people that believe in it. You won't have people that act on it. And so getting the culture right is really important. And there's a phenomenal book out there called The Culture Code by Daniel Coyle. And it's just a phenomenal book. And it breaks down culture into sort of very easy to understand sort of three pillars. But ultimately, what you are looking to create is a space where people can come and learn and have ideas, where they feel connected with each other so that they can always ask questions and they can learn from it, that they can feel that sort of safe space, and they understand that they're all heading on the same journey. When you create that kind of culture that people feel safe in and feel part of, you create that space where people go off and learn. And in that's where you create the groundwork for a really successful business. And habits I talked about before, you want to create a habit, you've got to do it consistently. You've got to do it every single day. And so what I teach my clients is that if you want to be successful with business development, you've got to get consistent with it. You've got to make it part of your job. And creating habits, again, phenomenal book, Atomic Habits by James Cleary. That is one of the greatest books I've ever read. So the two books I've just mentioned are two of the best books I've ever read. And by the way, I distill them down in the BD Breakthrough Blueprint because they're so important to everything else you're going to do. And with habits, it's about making tiny steps, making it easy on yourself, taking tiny steps, marginal gains that when you add them up over time, make a massive difference. When you can do that, when you can create the circumstances for yourself whereby you see yourself as a rainmaker, where you tell yourself over and over again, this is who I am. I'm a rainmaker. And so what does a rainmaker do? A rainmaker makes it rain work and opportunities. And if that's who I am, I'm going to act like that every single day.
You talked about two books in a very beautiful manner. When you are talking about all this, my mind always goes back to, again, understanding the mindset and why is it so important in order to make sure that your business is developed in a proper manner, the way you have done, the way you are explaining. I would like to understand that as the lawyers who are usually hesitant or more skeptical about incorporating these kind of business development programs or trainings in their career path, how do you encourage them actually to take this particular first step just to understand business development and then maybe implement? How do you encourage them to do that?
So I think there's a few things you can do. The first is to help lawyers understand that the world we're living in today is not the same world we were living in 30 years ago. And to understand that we're living in a world where information is everywhere. People are going out and they're looking for that information, and they're looking for information that they can trust. And so the opportunity to be part of that world where you can provide information that is trustworthy is really important. We're coming into an age, a technological age with AI that is going to dramatically transform everything about the legal profession. And it's going to change how we act and how we see ourselves as lawyers. We're no longer going to be document drafters. We're no longer going to be researchers. We are going to be advisors, because AI is going to do the document drafting and AI is going to do the research. And we're sort of still in the really early days of generative AI, and it's moving so quickly. If you look now at what products are available in terms of research and drafting, they're still so early, but it's going to get better, and it's going to get better, and it's going to get better. And if we embrace that, if we embrace artificial intelligence and use it to provide our clients with better outcomes, you're still going to need human lawyers to be advisors. You're still going to need that human element. And what we have to do is become those advisors. So how do you advise? Okay, that's the key thing. It's by sharing that information that we have, that knowledge that we have, that experience that we have, and turning those into insights, empowering clients to make informed decisions. And when we do that, we realize that all those thoughts we've had about what selling is, what business development is, it's nowhere near, it's nothing like what we thought it was. And when I talk about business development, when I talk about selling, I talk about consultative selling. And when I talk about consultative selling, I talk about the fact that it's getting to know your client, it's getting to understand your client so well that you can give them great advice, you can help them make informed decisions, and you can give them better outcomes. When you see it like that, you never have to sell a day in your life.
So it will become a seamless process just by understanding the concept of how to sell and how to develop your business, so you don't have to sell every day.
I think that's really important. I think all of this is just reframing. It's telling yourself, or it's reminding yourself actually, or it's remembering, what you see on TV, what you see in films like The Wolf of Wall Street is not what selling is. Once you can understand that, actually, the path to becoming a trusted advisor opens up so much in your mind. Because really and truly, that's what we all want to be. We all want to be considered a trusted advisor to our client. What we have to learn are the skills necessary to become a trusted advisor.
So true, so true. While discussing all this, it came to my mind that usually when we are talking about legal profession or lawyers for that matter, the emphasis is mostly on being right or delivering the quality work. All these being the skepticism in lawyers' mind as well. How is it that you navigate that particular transition for lawyers to also focus on building the relationships and winning the new clients? As you said, selling will become seamless and you don't have to work that much. So how is it that you are helping them transition in this new field of business development?
It's an interesting thing that you say that lawyers are trained to be right, because that's a mindset thing, a problem as well. Because when you're trained to be right, when something comes along and you realize you've done it wrong, you don't have the grounding to deal with that. So what happens when you are wrong? And we have to remember that being wrong, failure, is just a part of life. It's just a part of life's journey. There's not a single lawyer out there, and I find this to be a real problem within the industry. We don't talk about our mistakes. There's not a single lawyer out there that has not made a mistake. There's not a single lawyer out there who has not made an absolute doozy of a mistake. I made them. I had a classic mistake that I made, that from once I'd made that mistake, I kept a reminder of that mistake on my desk for years. I kept it on there for years as a reminder that mistakes are okay, but it's what you learn from that mistake. And I was fortunate enough with that same partner. The first thing I did, as soon as I realized I'd made the mistake, I went to that partner and I told him exactly what I'd done. And he said to me, he was brilliant. He said to me, "Do you know what, Scott? It's not a problem." He said, "It's fine. We've all been there. We've all done it. We can solve it. And if we can't solve it, that's what insurance is for. But there's a solution to all of these things. But the most important thing is that you've admitted, you've looked at it, and you're learning from it. And that's how it works." And it was brilliant to get that, because still today you hear stories everywhere of particularly young lawyers covering up their mistakes. And when you cover up the mistake, you make the mistake even worse. It is a part of the journey. What you also have to remember is that it is a transition, because we are still learning that our job isn't to be document drafters and researchers, but we're learners. We are life learners. We're spending our lives learning the law consistently. CPD, 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 continuous professional development. We're doing it all the time. What we're not saying is that there's aspects to our careers that go beyond learning just the technical law. No one's saying that to us loud enough. And I think it's really important that we understand that human skills, those human skills that we apply to our everyday lives outside of work, they apply equally in business. And when we take them into business, we create amazing relationships with our clients in the same way that we create relationships with people outside of work. If we take those things that we do outside of work, those conversations, listening skills, asking good questions, showing an interest, if we take those and put those into business, we create really strong bonds. We create really strong, solid foundations for relationships. And those people that we create those relationships with bring us work because they trust us to give them better outcomes. And that's what's important here. We have to make that transition because AI is here. We have to make that transition. We have to just feel good about it because AI is going to improve things for us so much. The outcomes that we can give clients will be so much better with AI. Now it's about how we use AI to build stronger relationships with clients.
So while you are talking about AI, as you know that I am also too much into understanding how AI is going to change our legal understanding, how we are going to work around it, and how to make it more feasible in order to use the technology for the advancement of legal profession rather than just getting stuck on the fact that it may take away our jobs. But if we become good at using that particular technology, I don't think it is going to take away our jobs or anyone else's jobs. So that being said, it's absolutely changing the whole landscape of legal realm and it is disrupting many professions also. Now, when you are seeing this disruption happening in legal profession as well, how is it that lawyers can adapt and stay relevant and successful in their careers as per you, and what are you designing for them next?
That's a great question. Okay. So let's start with a statistic. So according to the World Economic Forum, it estimates that artificial intelligence will give lawyers back around 50% of their time. Okay. So if that's the case, the first thing that's going to be disrupted is the billable hour. That's the first thing that's going to be disrupted. And you will know from a lot of my posts on LinkedIn, I love talking about the end of the billable hour. I hate the billable hour. I think it is the worst thing that ever happened to the legal profession. You have to bear in mind that the billable hour only became really mainstream in the sort of late 60s, early 70s. Before that, we were all value pricing. We were all fixed pricing our work. So we come from a history of upfront pricing our work. But the billable hour has taken over. And the first thing that's going to be disrupted, because I'll tell you why, Divya, let's say generously that it does take only 50% of the time. And my thinking is that it will take more. But let's say it takes around 50%. In order to make the same money under the billable hour, you've got only a couple of options. You've either got to go out and find more work, in which case you're going to have to get better at business development. Okay. The alternative is that you're going to have to double your hourly rate. So if you're losing half the time, you've got to double your hourly rate. Which client is going to say, okay, I get that because AI has basically meant that we've sped the job up by it twice, that you're losing out. So in order to make up for your loss, you're now charging me twice as much per hour. Which client is going to accept that? None, because one's got nothing to do with the other. Value and time, they don't meet anywhere. Your value is not in your time. And I get really frustrated when senior lawyers tell junior lawyers, don't forget your value's in your time. Your value is not in your time. Your value is in your experience, your knowledge, the service you provide, the outcomes you provide, the peace of mind that you give to people in any aspect of law. Those are the things where your value, true value is. And none of those are about time. So what's going to happen is that legal businesses are going to have a decision to make. How do we deal with how quickly AI is producing results for us and the impact that's having on our bottom line? Because now, firstly, clients will demand the use of AI eventually. You can't sit there and say to them, no, we don't use AI. Why not? Well, because it gets the job done really quickly and we're losing out financially. Well, that's not going to be a good enough excuse. Clients are going to demand it because they're going to become used to it elsewhere. The legal profession can't be immune to it. You're going to have to find alternative business models. And whether that is value pricing, which is where we all should be, or whether it's something like the subscription model, which I absolutely love. I love because there are law firms out there offering subscription models for legal services, which I think is also the future of the legal industry. Those will be the future because you won't be able to continue offering. You will struggle. There will be some who will hold on to the billable hour for dear life, but it won't be the future. The other thing about that is that AI will force lawyers to sit there and go, okay, well, if AI is doing the legal drafting and the legal research, where does that leave me? where does that leave my role? And it will be an uncomfortable process to go through for some, to say, well, I either don't know where that leaves me, but those who think about it properly will go, well, actually, my role will be to get AI to produce the work that I've traditionally done and then sit with the client and make it relevant to the client and add the human touch to it and understand why human beings don't necessarily choose the best outcomes. Sometimes they choose outcomes that are not the best outcomes, and they have reasons for it. And our job will be to work through that with them. Our job will be to be advisors, to take what AI has done and use it to advise the clients on their specific circumstances. And when we can do that, it's going to open up a brilliant future, a brilliant, brilliant future for the profession.
Such amazing interview and actually mind-blowing concepts the way you are explaining. Yes, we cannot say that AI is doing things faster and we can tell them that we don't use AI because of this. So that's one of the very catchy phrases which you have used. We almost have reached towards the end of our interview, but I cannot resist myself. Rather, I would say that this is kind of our ritual question, that we love to know how do you establish the balance between your professional and personal life, because you have been a practicing attorney as well as you are now a business developer for lawyers. You are making them rainmakers. So how is it that you are balancing your personal and professional life? We would love to know.
Thank you. So it all goes back to why, right? So why did we set up Legal Balance? And why do we run that business the way that we do it? And when I finished practicing law, we had 2 young children and we just had a third, and we were just about to have our 4th. And I realized that over the years with our first 2 children, I was just working harder and harder and harder. And I was finding myself falling back into that trap again with our 3rd child. And I realized that all 4 of our children were still young enough that I didn't have to convince myself that I was working this hard for them, only to never really see them. My family is everything to me. And I wanted to create, and bear in mind, my wife, by the way, is the CEO of Legal Balance. So she's the brains behind everything. Any good idea, Divya, that you've ever seen me seemingly have has actually come from her, because she really is the brains of it. And by the way, she hates it when I tell people that, because she just wants to be in the background and she hates it when I sort of mention her. But she is amazing. But family is everything. And so we started from there and we said, okay, well, if that's the case, what we're going to do to make sure that we have time, always put the kids first. And we decided that what we were going to do is we were going to have a business that wasn't driven by time, but was driven by outcomes. So we created tasks for ourselves, we created outcomes for ourselves. And if we completed those tasks, then we could choose what to do with the rest of our day. And that's not to say that, there would be some days where we would do a few hours of work and we'd get those things done and we would go off. And it was never a case of, well, okay, but if we did more work that day, we could achieve more. Actually, what you will find is the longer you are sat at your desk, actually, the less productive you are actually being. That's the problem, by the way, with the billable hour. It's the idea that the longer you're at the desk, the more you're working, but you're not, because you're not producing great work the longer you are sat anywhere. So we created a business that was results focused, not time focused. Anybody who comes and works with us, anybody who we bring in on a consultancy basis or anything like this, they're given tasks to do. If you complete those tasks in an hour and you've got no admin to do and you've got no CPD to do, off you go. The rest of the day is yours, because you've created the outcomes that we're looking for. So that's added value to our business. We don't need you to sit there 9 till 5:30, 9 till 6, pretending to be doing things, when actually the things that you've done for that day or whenever have been achieved and you've created great value for us. We have team meetings on a Friday morning. We don't work on a Friday afternoon. And so when the kids finish school, we can be there, we can go off, we can do whatever we want to do with them. We make sure that we are there for our kids for those times if they're having school plays or they need to be picked up early or whatever it is. We can make those choices. And really interestingly, I was talking with a client the other day, and she was saying to me, it's so funny, when she looks back at her year, what she's achieved in terms of her turnover, if she thinks about the amount of time she actually spent doing the technical legal work, she could probably boil it down into like a month of actual technical legal work. But she's got the ability now, so looking at it, she's saying, well, actually, if I want to double it, or I want to, quadruple it or more, it's not about time. She can achieve those things without having to sit there 9 till 6 every day. Whereas previously in her career, when she was working under the billable hour, she'd be working all the hours she possibly could. Firstly, she never, years she never hit target, but she was working and working and working. And having come out of the billable hour into a results-based business, because that's what she's done. She's created a law firm that is results-based and gets really fantastic results for her clients. Clients don't care how long it took her. In fact, they want the outcomes done as quickly as possible, and they pay good money to her to get the job done as quickly as possible. And she's achieved all of that. And she looks back and she said to me, she said, I can't believe I spent so much time working under a system of the billable hour that is just crazy. She did reasonably well, but never gave her the outcomes that this business was giving her. It was wonderful to have the discussion, but that is true across the board. That is true across the entire legal industry, that you can achieve so much when you move away from time and move to results focused businesses.
That's such a beautiful concept, that if you're result driven and not time driven, you get more work done and you get more output. It's
Yeah.
actually a concept which has to be understood by, I guess, almost everyone. But then for that result, you have to be equally diligent as well. So now that you have shared this particular insight, I just want to quickly ask you, when is it that you feel that when you said that we are result driven and we are not time driven? There are many a times when we face such people who we feel that they will be doing result driven work but end up not doing it. So at that time business also gets the losses. So how is it that you see such kind of thing does not happen and you keep people motivated enough to get the result and not think about only billable hours?
I think it's really important to firstly remember two things. Any career move a lawyer makes should be based on your own personal values and not a feeling that you should reach a certain place. I'm very much of the belief that you shouldn't have to strive for big law just because you think that's the pinnacle of a career. I think you should go and look for what matters to you most. And you will find that you can have that search within yourself and write a journal, write those things down and what's important for you. I think the other thing is, from the business side, create a business where you bring people into it who share your values, who share the way that you want to run your business. I think it's also important to remember the way you price your work is really, really important. Pricing comes down to confidence and bravery. And that is really massively important because the legal profession has a problem with pricing. And that problem comes down to, we don't know how to do business development. So every job could be the last job. So we need to price it to win. And that is create a downward pressure on the profession. I think you have to understand that when you have a conversation with a client, you focus on value. And if you focus on value, people will pay the price that you want to charge because they believe it to be fair. And if they don't, then that's not the right client for you. But the question that you ask comes down to a belief that there's some form of perfection, and there isn't. No matter how good at these things you get, you'll never get it 100% right. But you're looking for iteration. You're looking to get it more right and more right and more right and learn and learn and learn. And if you can do that, you'll create a really successful legal business, and you'll create the environment for your lawyers to give you great work and great outcomes for your clients and for themselves. Because if they don't have to be there from 7 in the morning till 8, 9 o'clock at night because they've got hours targets to meet, if their target is to produce great outcomes for clients, they can do that much more quickly, and you can give them that balance. I call it work leisure harmony. I don't call it work-life balance because life is life and work is a part of life. So I call it work leisure harmony because you are bringing the two together to work together. And if you can create those circumstances, remembering that you're not going to get it 100% right every time, but allowing people to make mistakes so that they can learn, you'll create the environment for your lawyers to give exceptional outcomes for you and your clients.
Thank you, Scott, for enlightening us with such dedication about why we need to understand about business development, even though we are lawyers and we are inherently taught that we should not be marketing, selling things, but we are doing it. So it has been a very, very enlightening experience for me. And again, thank you for accepting our invite and being here and letting our learners know why we need what we need right now in order to form a channel and understand how it works for us. Thank you so much once again.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for having me, Divya.